Hi there, welcome to another edition of Yoga with Anne. Thank you so much for being here. I'm happy you're here. Today we're going to be practicing heart openers, also known as back bends. In my classes, we don't typically do the bigger, more extreme back bends, so no concern. But number one rule, take care of yourself, right? Honor your body, and that can mean your physical body, but it can also mean your heart, your mind, your breath, whatever it might be. So honor you. Make sure that you keep yourself safe. We shouldn't feel pain or discomfort. We can feel intense sensations at times, but we don't want to go to a point where we're hurting ourselves. So I always ask that you honor your body, whatever that means today. And it might mean that you just listen to the class and you lie on your mat in constructive rest. Really, whatever works for you. So the props that we need today are, the main thing that you need is something that can work as a towel or a blanket. So I have typical yoga blankets, and I know not everyone has that. So a beach towel, a bath towel, those things can work. You want something that can roll or fold easily. So a big bulky blanket is not great for what we need. So everyone should have some sort of towel like that. If that's all you have, then that's what you'll use for class today. If you happen to have yoga blocks, one or two, grab those. If you don't have yoga blocks, some sort of, I was gonna call this a towel, some sort of pillow, right? From your bed, from your couch. It could be bigger than this. This is just kind of what I picked. We're gonna use it, put a little pressure. So this one is slightly firm. So it won't work as well as the block, but it'll still work. And if you just don't have anything like this, then you're gonna use your imagination. Totally fine. So let's begin. We're gonna start in a heart opener, a supported heart opener, and it's one of my favorite poses. So first of all, it brings our body into extension, right? That lifting, that opening, and most of the time our bodies are in flexion. So this can physically feel uncomfortable because we're not typically in this position. In our everyday life, almost everything we do is forward, right? Arms, we're driving, we're looking at our phone, we're working on our computer, even cooking, all kinds of things. We rarely are ever in this position, right? This is not a natural position in our everyday life. So when we bring our bodies into a back bend, it can feel intense physically, but it can also feel intense emotionally because we're opening up, we're vulnerable. So if you find this to be intense, you could always place your hands on your heart center. You are welcome to put a blanket or something like that over you, even if it's just a blanket to cover up, but sometimes a folded blanket or towel on your chest can put a little bit of weight and make you feel more comfortable and more safe. If absolutely this pose is not okay for you today or at any time, right, then don't do it. Even a pose that's like supposed to be easy, right? Like it doesn't matter. It could be constructive rest lying on your mat. You might have to adjust for that. So never think that because you think this pose should be easy, it doesn't mean it's accessible for you, right? There's some reason why it's not okay today or most of the time. And you honor that. You honor who you are, where you are in this moment. So I'm going to show two ways to set up this pose. I'm just going to move this pillow out of the way for right now. So if you happen to have two blocks, I'm sitting on my other block, you can set up with your blocks. This block is going to support the lower tips of my shoulder blades, and this block is going to support my head. If you have one block, what you can do is have the block under your shoulder blades, and then you can have your blanket or towel or pillow under your head for support. Not everyone needs support, but the majority of us do need support. So lower tips of the shoulder blades, if you know where the bra line is typically, that's kind of where you want to think about it. If you have no idea what that means, you're going to think about like right below your armpits, right? So that's where the lower tips of your shoulder blades are. So I'm going to start in constructive rest with my knees bent and feet on my mat. I'm going to lower myself down. Lower tips of the shoulder blades on the lower block. And then I like the medium height. I'm going to rest my head here. You may need the higher height, the lower height, or no block. I don't think most of us, so I'll just show you what it looks like for me. As I say, I don't think most of us can do it this way. So this is, my head doesn't even reach, right? And I'm actually like shrugging my shoulders forward. So it's doing the opposite of what I really want. So even though my head right now is higher than the other block, I'm still in a heart opener, right? You can see my chest open, My shoulder blades are wide. My arms are down by my sides. So that's an option if you have 2 blocks or 1 block and some other support under your head. I'm going to roll on over. That's the best way to come out. And I'm going to use my blanket or towel as a roll. So for most of us, we won't need support under a head, but that doesn't mean you won't. So maybe that block or pillow or another blanket, or, so I'm going to take from my long end, and I know everyone's support is different, blanket or towel is different, and I'm going to roll from the long end. So you also have the option to not roll it all the way, and you got a little cushion there. We'll see how it feels for me today. So same idea, lower tips of the shoulder blades on the roll. So with the roll, how you can judge if you're in the right spot is that your arms easily come above the roll. So I've got a wall right here, so I can't quite put my arms out all the way. So mine will eventually end up here. And then I'm going to put my hand behind my head, and my hand's behind my head, and just kind of lead myself back, kind of lengthening on down. So this feels pretty good for me. You might need to scooch up a tiny bit or down a little bit, but you have that idea. So, if the roll is like the middle of your back, of course your arms are going to come above it. So you kind of have to adjust a little bit. I'm actually going to move myself just a tiny bit higher up. And then I'm going to allow myself to relax. Legs can go out long. That's not something that works great in my body. So I'm actually going to set my feet wide and have my knees come together. You can stay with your feet about hip distance apart and knees standing tall, legs out long, or this option. If it's comfortable for you, you can close your eyes, soften your gaze, or keep your eyes open. Again, if you need weight on your heart, on your chest, please do that. And if you need to come out early, come out early. You're going to roll over to your side and then sit on up. So don't sit straight on up forward, because then you're going to kind of jar your head, and all that goodness that you just acquired will probably be gone. So we want to keep ideal movements, keeping our head below our heart as much as possible. I know if your head's on the block, it might be higher. Your attention back to your breath. So maybe you deepen it, you notice how it opens more in this position. And as you exhale, you allow it to soften, both physically and emotionally, maybe even in your mind. If your legs are out long, bend your knees and bring your feet to your mat. And we'll come back to constructive rest. So feet about hip distance apart, knees standing tall. And the best way to come off, even if you're on blocks, is to roll over to your side. It might be a little difficult, so take your time rolling over, keeping your head low. And then once you're over to your side, you can press your hands into the mat to come on up, trying to bring your head up last. So once I stopped talking, we were in that for about 2 minutes. Any amount of time in that pose is great, it's doing something, right? 5 minutes is really ideal. I typically do poses a little shorter when I'm doing my YouTube classes because the classes are shorter. You can always pause and do longer. You can do it on your own. You can set a timer. I do that a lot when I do yoga on my own. If I'm more in, this was more of a restorative pose. If you're more in a restorative pose where you hold it for a period of time, setting a timer is really helpful because then you're not like, what time is it? Looking at the clock or being distracted or thinking you've been in it too long or not long enough. And then if you fall asleep, then you get woken up, right? So it's okay if you fall asleep. I do pretty regularly. All right, so I'm gonna unroll my blanket and I'm gonna refold it because we're gonna come to lie down, and I like support under my head. So not everyone needs support under their head, but for a lot of us when we lie down, because we live in this world where we're hunched forward, slumped forward, when we lie down on a hard floor, the chin tends to be up, the back of the head is, kind of tucked back, and that's not comfortable. So we want to be comfortable. So be mindful of how high your blanket is because it can also push you more forward so that your chin is going this way. So we want to try to find an even spot. If you have a block, get your block. If you don't have a block, get your pillow. If you don't have a pillow or anything else to use, then you're going to use your imagination. So I will show it both ways. So come into constructive rest, which means you lie on your back. You have your knees bent and your feet on your mat. Block a little too far away. So if you have something, you're going to put it between your thighs. So with a block, we can squeeze pretty good here, right? If it's a pillow, like I could squeeze really hard and my knees are going to go too far in. So the idea is that I want your hips, your knees, your feet, or your shins, your feet, your toes to kind of all be in alignment here. So this also allows us, so a lot of times when you do back bends, and we're not doing anything major, right? But we want a little internal rotation with our thighs because let's say we're going to lift up, we don't want our knees flaying out to the sides, right? We want to feel the firmness. So if you have a block, that works. If you have a pillow, you just don't want to squeeze as hard unless it's a really thick pillow and you have that. But I can at least imagine I'm really pressing at, you don't want to like press with all your might either, but a firm press so that I feel the activation in my thighs. And then if you don't have anything, then you use your imagination, right? I'm going to use the pillow. So I have to use a little imagination here. Arms down by your side. So we're going to do a pelvic tilt. So this is tucking and tilting of the pelvis, and I know sometimes this is confusing for people. So the next time that we exhale, we're going to press our low back onto the mat, and we're going to lift our tail up toward the ceiling. So I'm going to hollow out my belly, and I'm spreading the low back onto the mat. You can think about flattening your back onto the mat. I don't really like to use that word for the back. And then we're going to reverse it. So when you inhale, you're going to tilt. So like you're tilting your tail down toward the mat and you're going to arch your back. And then you just go back and forth. Tucking and tilting, moving forward and back, moving up and down. So if you know cat-cow, it's like cat-cow, but you're on your back. And feel free to have your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. Let's do a couple more rounds. So you can feel the press of your feet into the mat, the firm press of your thighs into whatever you're using as a prop, imaginary or actually there. Let's do one more. And then come back to what feels like a neutral spine. So you're not tucking, you're not tilting, you're pretty even. And you're gonna remove your prop. And just come back to constructive rest. And then let's make our way over to one side. So we're gonna do like we came out of the heart opener. Move your knees and legs to one side, rolling over, keep your head heavy. Press your hands into the mat, lift on up, coming back up into a seated position. All right, so we're gonna come on to all fours in our tabletop. I like to use padding under my knees. It's totally optional. So you can take your blanket or towel and have that moving along your mat. If you have blocks, have them up at the top front of your mat. If you don't have blocks, you can use your body. I'll show you how you can do this. You could have a stool up there. Maybe you're near a wall or a piece of furniture, so you have options. And then we're gonna come on to all fours in our tabletop, right? So wrists below shoulders, knees below hips. And then once you're here, maybe you make an adjustment. So you might need to move your hands a little forward. You might need to move your fingers out to the side or a little in. So find what works best for you, but we want to feel wide in our chest and our shoulder blades. And we also want to make sure it feels okay in our wrist. All right, and then we're going to do that tucking and tilting here. So the next time you exhale, bring your tail under your body, round your spine, head and neck slightly come down. And then as you're ready, when you inhale, lift your tail up, arch your spine, open your heart, a slight lift of your head and neck, and go back and forth. So see if you can move to your breath. And if exhaling in the cat doesn't work for you, then try inhaling, and vice versa. Also make sure that you're not dumping your head back when you come into your cow pose. You want your neck to be a continuation of your spine. So our low backs and our necks back bend much more easily than where we had that roll or block earlier. And that's really where we're back bending. So pelvic tilt starts in the pelvis. But as you come into this heart opener, think about the shoulder blades, the lower tips getting closer, the upper parts of the shoulder blades widening. Let's do 2 more. So when you come into this cow pose, you're in extension, a back bend, and when you come into the cat, you're in flexion, more of a forward fold-ish. All right, whenever you're complete, so if you're still going, don't rush or feel hurried. Let's come to a neutral spine. And then from here, we're gonna come into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. So you have options. You don't have to do dog pose. You can stay here in your tabletop. You can continue with your cat-cow. You could come into a child's pose where you move your hips back and you rest your head on your mat or maybe a prop. You also have the option of what a pose is called puppy pose. So I'm gonna walk my hands a little bit forward and I'm gonna shift my hips back. And I'm gonna rock my hands more forward and shift back. And you find the spot best for you. So it's a combination of down dog, like the upper part, and then a combination of child's pose. So you have those options. All right, if you're coming into dog, let's step our hands, one handprint forward, fingers spread wide, curled toes under, lift your knees up, and shift your butt, hip, and thighs away from your hands, bringing your body into a nice long inverted V. You may need to adjust your feet. Your knees can be bent a little or a lot. You can pedal your feet, you can stay right where you are. Lifting your sit bones like you're trying to get them into that space between the ceiling and the wall where they meet, that corner. You get it up in there. So lifting, lengthening, and breathing. All right, let's bring our knees down, coming back to a tabletop, and we're gonna step our right foot forward. This is where the blocks can come in handy. So, if I was a little closer to the wall, I could use the wall. I could use this table, but it's not super steady. You can also use your thigh. So I'm just gonna move my block for a moment so that you can see knee right above ankle or heel. So we don't wanna be here, right? So if you wanna go deeper, you can. You just gotta scooch more forward. So toes can be curled under or top of the foot on the mat. And then we want to make sure we're not dumping, right? So there's a lift and lengthening from our belly And even though right now we're not in heart opener, we can think about the width of our collarbones, our shoulder blades. And then if you're able, bring your hands up onto your thigh. We're gonna bring our hands to our hips. So this is where I need to curl my back toes under. I get pretty tippy here. It's a little helpful. I'm still, you know, moving around, right? And that's okay, that's balance, it's helping us. So press the feet into the mat, lift from the belly, hands at our hips, and we're gonna start to bring our elbows behind us, and imagine heart center, you're lifting like there's a light there, and you can see the light shining whatever's forward of you. So don't dump your head back, and don't come into your low back, right? So that lift is coming from right behind heart center. So we know anatomically our heart starts to the left, but think about it right at the middle of your breastbone, lifting and opening as you breathe. Let's come back upright. We'll release our hands. We're gonna do a shoulder roll. That's gonna bring our arms behind us like locust pose, Shalabhasana. Lifting and opening, and then we're gonna keep that as we hinge forward. Maybe just move an inch or two. So don't lead with the chin, maybe a little tuck of the chin. To stay in this heart opener as we come forward, challenging ourselves a little bit more. Whew. All right, let's come back up. Release. Step your right foot back, and let's step our left foot forward. So first coming into our low lunge, so checking in, alignment. It's okay if your knee's back, but the best, safest place for you to be is right here, because bone stacking on bone helps us with our alignment, and then to make sure that our muscles aren't working as hard. But you do your best, right? So if that's too much, then you back off. All right, if it's okay, we're gonna press that front foot into the mat and bring our hands up onto the thigh if they're not already there. I'm gonna curl my back toes under. That's totally up to you. And I'm gonna help to create this lift. So I'm pressing through my feet, creating this lift to be tall and long, which is important for our back bends. And then hands at hips. And we're gonna start to bring our elbows behind us, and we're gonna shine our heart light forward, coming into a back bend here. Allowing our neck to follow, right? So we're not lifting our chin up. Ooh, that made me tip over. And breathing, so make sure that you're still breathing. Our breath is a great indicator, so if you're struggling, then back out of a pose. All right, let's come back upright. We're gonna release our hands, arms down by our sides, shoulder roll, arms start to come behind us, reaching fingertips down and away, coming into a variation of Shalabhasana locust pose. And then let's hinge forward. If that's not okay, then stay upright. Tuck your chin a little bit so you're not leading with your chin as you come into this forward fold with a back bend. Wiggle wobble, all good. Means those muscles are working. All right, we're gonna come back up. We're gonna release. We're gonna come back to our low lunge, and then we're gonna step our left foot and knee back. And we're gonna do one more downward facing dog or cat cow or child's or puppy. You do what's best for you. Just gonna even ourselves out in those one-sided poses. So we're gonna come down onto our belly. So if it's best for you to bring your knees down to your mat and come on down, then you do that. If you're able to do a plank pose, you're gonna shift forward, bringing your shoulders right above your wrists, pressing through your heels, and neck is nice and long. And then I'm gonna bring my knees down, and I'm actually gonna move my blanket. You might want your blanket like under your hip bones. I don't like it, so you have to decide. And then as easily and safely as possible, come on down. I'm just gonna move my blocks out of the way, have a little more space. Like them to be out of the camera if possible. And then let's rest our palms, chin or forehead or cheek on top of your hands. So this might be too much for you, and if it is for some reason, doesn't matter what the reason, you can come into what's called Sphinx pose. Shoulders are right above our elbows, our forearms are parallel to each other, and our fingers are spread wide. It's not one of my favorite poses. It's actually pretty intense on my low back. So if you need to be here and this is too much, then you're gonna shift your hands forward. I've got this table in the way, so I'm adjusting my hands a little bit, but that takes take some of the strain out of your low back. Other ways, you can stay in crocodile, which is where we are with the hands stacked. Most ideal position for your head is forehead on your hands because that has your neck nice and long on all four sides. You can stay here, you can stay in your Sphinx, or we're going to set up for Cobra. So hands right under your shoulders, elbows as close to your sides as possible. Ideally to be on your forehead or your chin. I have mine lifted just a little bit because I'm talking. Let's press our pelvis in the mat and think about lengthening your right leg long, so maybe you lift it up a little, reaching your toes toward whatever's behind you, setting down, and then the left leg. Lift, lengthen, set down. Shoulder roll. Bring your shoulder blades onto your rib cage, and then we're going to peel our chest up off the mat to come into our baby cobra. So make sure that your chin's not jutting forward. Tuck the chin. You want your neck to be long on all four sides. And breathe. If you need to come down early, come down early. You're still up. Let's lower on down. Resting the best way for you. Could be crocodile. Could be child's. Actually, don't do child's pose yet. Never mind. You can also just rest on your cheek with your arms by your sides. Let's do our heart openers first, and then if you want to come into a child's pose, you can. All right, next pose. Arms down by your sides. You can stay in crocodile. You can be in Sphinx. You can do Cobra again, or you can come into locust. So arms down by your sides. Let's press our pelvis into the mat. Let's lift our right leg, extend, lower, left leg, extend, lower. Shoulder roll. That's going to start to lift your arms up. So reach your fingertips towards your feet and triceps up toward the ceiling. Neck long, peel your chest up. You can stay here, or you can lift both your legs up. Shalabhasana locust pose. Strengthening. These poses are strengthening our low back muscles. And also, they're a heart opener. If you're still in it, lower on down, resting. You can decide what you want to do for this last pose here. I'm going to set up for Cobra, and that's what I'm going to teach. So I'm going to press my pelvis, lengthen my legs, nice and active. Shoulder rolls as my elbows stay close to my sides, and peel up. So some of you might want to stay right here in baby Cobra. Some of you might want to bring your arms towards straight. I can't go very high, but make sure, again, chin's not jutting forward. You're looking down at your mat. Elbows stay close to your sides, shoulder blades down. So if you notice they're coming up to your ears, bring them down. If you're still up, let's come on down. And here you can let it all go. So you can stay here just on your belly, resting. You can wiggle out your hips. You can bend your knees and do what's called a reverse windshield wiper. Or you have the option to come into a child's pose. So that's where your big toes touch or come close together. Your knees are in some sort of apart. They could be close together. You sit back on your heels. You drape your torso over your thighs. And you rest your forehead either on the mat, on your hands, stacked fists, or even on a prop. All right, wherever you are, let's press on up. I'm going to come back to a tabletop just briefly here. So we're going to set up for our supported bridge pose. So 2 ways to do that. There's actually more than 2 ways. I'm going to teach 2 ways. So either with the blanket or with the block. So I'm going to teach with the blanket first and then the block. If you happen to have a bolster and you want to use that and you know how, then feel free. It's kind of the same instructions as the blanket. All right, so I'm in constructive rest. Let's do a couple of pelvic tilts here. So even if you're just watching right now, because you're going to do the block, go ahead and do a couple pelvic tilts. Tucking and tilting, spreading and arching. All right, so the next time that you come to neutral, let's stay there, press our feet in the mat and lift up just enough to slide the support under you. So sacrum, hips, tailbone, and with your blanket or towel or bolster, you can support that and your low back. I'm going to press my feet on the mat, lift up to move that out of the way, and I'm going to grab my block, a couple of pelvic tilts, come back to neutral, press feet, lift up, going to go a little higher. So this, we don't put it at the low back. So hips, sacrum, pelvis, and we don't want anything under our head. So we want to keep that natural curve of our neck. So if you've got a blanket nearby, move it out of the way. And you can see, because we're lifted up more, right, that idea that we don't want our knees flailing out to the side. So if you happen to have a second block and you want to put it between your thighs, you're welcome to. This is a little bit more of a resting pose, more of a restorative pose. But if you want to work it a little bit more, you have that option. Okay, we're going to come out. Press your feet into the mat. Lift your hips up just enough to get the support out of the way. Slide it out of the way. And come back to constructive rest. All right, we're going to set up for our final pose, Shavasana. I'm rolling on over because I'm going to get my blanket for my head. I had a sweater. Oh yeah, I'm a little bit chilly, and when we relax, we can get cold. So another blanket is a great idea. Socks, fleece, whatever you might want to be comfortable. So when I teach these classes for Shavasana, we usually do about 2 minutes. So if you want to do longer, you can pause, set your timer, do it as long as you want, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. The longer, the better, right? But nothing wrong with doing the 2-ish minutes, however long it is that we're going to do. So you do what's best for you. I recommend some sort of Shavasana. I know for some people it can be intense and difficult, but it's really important. So if it's better for you to stay seated, you'll stay seated. It's just a few moments to allow what we practiced to kind of resonate, to absorb, to marinate. And then this is a way of closing our practice. So I think it's important. And most people come to yoga for the Shavasana. If it's harder for you, then you just notice that. And you maybe focus on your breath. So I'm going to come into my constructive rest. If you have lots of props, you're welcome to use those, right? I try to teach these classes assuming that those who are taking class don't have yoga props, right? So there's so many things you can use in your home. If you wanted to extend your legs out long and put pillows under your knees, you could do that as like a bolster. I want you to be comfortable and warm. So for me, I'm in constructive rest, and I'm gonna step my feet wide. I'm gonna allow my knees to come together, because when I start to relax, my knees start to move around. So they support each other, and then I don't have to, I'm not being jarred out of my Shavasana because my legs are falling over to the side. So arms wherever you're comfortable. Close your eyes or soften your gaze or keep your eyes open. And for these next few breaths, if it's okay, take a fuller, deeper inhale and a long, extended exhale. Maybe one more time. And we'll just allow ourselves to be, not doing, just being here on our mats with our breath, with our body, with our mind, and with our hearts. Bring your attention back to your breath. Maybe just notice the inhales and exhales, how they affect your physical body. If it's comfortable for you, you can deepen and extend your breath. Bring attention to your physical body. How does it feel? Do you want to stay still? Do you want to start to move? You can start with the fingers and toes, the hands and feet, wrists and ankles. You can stretch, you can hug your knees in, you can move your head and neck side to side. And do all of these things, whether you're lying down or seated. In the next breath or two, you'll make your way over to one side. Stay there for a moment, allowing your head to get heavy. And then you'll press your hands into the mat, lifting on up, coming back up into a seat. And sit however is comfortable for you. So typically I sit in this pose called Virasana Hero Pose. I'm not teaching it. It can be a really intense pose for people, for knees, for ankles, for other parts of the body. It feels really good in my body, and it's one of the few places where I feel like I can sit pretty tall. So if you want to just stay lying down, didn't mean to just say just. If you want to lie down, lie down. If you want to sit cross-legged, legs out long, you could sit on your mat with your knees bent, your feet on your mat. That might be more comfortable for your body. You could sit in a chair, on a stool, wherever it works for you. Just for these next few moments for us to close our practice together. So again, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes, soften your gaze, or keep your eyes open. And then I invite you to bring your hands together at heart center in what's called Anjali Mudra. So your palms face each other, your thumbs press into your sternum at heart center. This is how we seal our practice together. Keep peace in your mind, keep strength in your body, and keep love in your heart. From my heart to yours, I bow to you. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I'm so glad that you're here, honoring you, taking care of you. If you need to get a hold of me, all of my information will be below in the description. If you have requests or questions, feel free to send them to me. Right now with my YouTube channel, my goal is to record one class a quarter. I do have a full-time job and teach yoga on the side, so that's kind of where I am right now with the capacity I'm at with contributing to my YouTube channel. Things can change. Sometimes I'm inspired and I do more, but that's the goal that I'm working towards. So I'll also know that there might be a reason why I skipped quarter two or, whatnot. So never fear. If you want to get in touch with me, you have those options. And I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking care of you. Have a great day.